what's actually taking place over there. Yeah, and the inhumane, the disparate, I would say the disproportionate use of force by one side over the other, the responsibility that one side has over the other. I think that's something that a lot of people have been able to kind of highlight as the main issue.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think it's cut through a lot more this time around. I think partially due to the lockdown, in the same way we saw with George Floyd, but acts of injustice is less easy for them to go unchecked and sweep under a rug or fit certain narratives. But then moving on, that's my kind of fundamental. It's like, okay, so I don't support this violence in any way. But you've got a group of people that live there. This place has been a country now for a few generations of people, and as far as they're concerned, and I would agree with them, that's where they grew up, and I think you get in very dangerous territory when you start uninventing countries. And I think you're also in horrible territory when you invent countries as well, because that generally comes from some kind of war or conquest or some kind of misgiving with the powers that be, generally that cause countries to come into existence. But I think you can't come to a conclusion by doing that same process. So to get rid of Israel doesn't seem ethical to me in any sense. But what would you say on that matter?
I think the argument that a lot of people are making is you can only get rid of something that exists in the first place. Yeah. So if something doesn't exist, like it's not something that's gone through the correct channels to even get to the current stage of existence, how can then, do you see? Like,
I completely agree with you, but I would say that
you're talking about moving forward, isn't it?
Yeah, but I would say you could say all kinds of countries didn't come into existence via the proper channels, via the proper reasons. I think that will forever be an argument. You could say that about America, but it's and it might be right, and I think it probably morally, and I think you can trace back the way things have passed, and you could probably make a good case in the Hyde or whatever that actually, Christopher Columbus, that was bad.
That's a good point, but I think the comparison, I don't think Israel has a comparison with any other country on the planet with regards to the brute force that it's been using, for the amount of time it's been using it, for the amount of UN injunctions it's ignored, for the amount of clear violation of human rights. I don't think any other nation for such a prolonged period of time has been pushing forward, which, I mean, you could use the word apartheid, you can use the word genocide, I mean, whichever buzzwords we can put, but I don't think any other country to that level.
I understand what you're saying, but do you mean any other country ever?
No.
Any other country right now?
Yeah, right now.
Okay.
Right now. Yeah.
And do you mean any other nation that wants to be seen as some kind of UN-worthy Western nation? Because I think there's many barbaric regimes throughout the world. I think the way the Chinese government is behaving currently in regards to human rights, right in front of people, the treatment of the Uyghur Muslims, of the Falun Gong, of any prisoner of conscience, and it is happening on a really grand scale. And I'm not saying these things in defense of Israel. I'm saying the actions of Israel are awful and the actions of this nation are awful. But you are saying comparatively the actions of Israel are worse, and that's where I don't know if I 100% would agree with you, but I would agree that they are awful.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, the Chinese thing is fairly recent. Yeah, it's just been, I would say, maybe 4 or 5 years. But the Israel thing is, that's why I said you can't put anything in the same category as Israel.
The thing with the Uyghurs is quite recent. But however, the actions against
that's why you can't.
But the actions with the Falun Gong, that's the religious meditation where people are getting. It's like the meditation end of Tai Chi that became very popular in China, and this is like 20 or so years back. Yeah, it's not 70 years.
Yeah,
It's not the creation of the state.
There's no other country. I can understand that there are other oppressions taking place. There's other major issues taking place, but the Israel issue is unique.
I think we're kind of getting away from the core point. Are you using what you're saying as a justification to make Israel no longer exist? Is that your premise?
No, not really. What I'm doing is I'm exploring the different viewpoints that people are putting forward. You'll have one viewpoint that doesn't accept that Israel has come through the correct channels for its existence. There's not been any discussion, and I think to extrapolate, therefore Israel doesn't have a right to exist. I think that's a very far-fetched extrapolation from that. This is saying that it's from the get-go. It can't justify a reasonable existence that, say, other nations can. And then you'll have the other group that will say, okay, two-state solution. Yeah, which is something that a lot of people nowadays have been pushing forward, but this conflict has also I'll say highlighted, especially the Israeli ambassador. Her name is a bit...
I know who you're talking about. I've seen her on the news a lot. During the recent...
She's got a very strange name.
Very fierce lady.
Yeah, so what she says is the two-state solution, and she came, you know what I'm talking about, isn't it?
Yeah, I know exactly.
She came on Sky and the BBC, and she's mainstream, like she's not fringe. She came and she said, we know, we need to be realistic, the two-state solution is dead.
Yeah. No, and I think that is the general understanding of a lot of people within that community.
And it's because of the settlements. The settlements have come and they have destroyed that.
Completely unlawful.
Yeah, and it still continues to do so.
But I think that the problem it faces is the same problem that many nations face, which is that it's a nation founded on war. And it can be war. It's oftentimes aggression from Israel. And you know, I firmly believe that broadly the actions of Palestine are only in self-defense fundamentally. And I know, you know, I've watched Joseph, who comes out here. He's very thorough with his history on these things, and that my ignorance to that is but all I can say is there have been various, you know, intifadas, various wars, various nakbas, various horrific incidents that have caused this place into existence. But that doesn't take away from the fact that a child being born in Israel or Palestine today, they firmly believe they are that thing, and you're never going to be able to remove that from their head. So how do you move forward? I feel like I can see how historically it's very painful to acknowledge Israel as a legitimate state. That would not be the preference of certain communities. But I'm very open to another solution. But I just wonder what else you can do other than kind of...
The thing is, solutions can be very large, far between, and we can, elaborate on them. But I think the solution that matters the most at this moment in time is keeping Israel in check. Because what it's doing, it's going into territories. It's actually what it's using is, you've probably seen the clip that came of Benjamin Netanyahu sitting in someone's living room and pretty much spilling the beans about how he's using his relationship with the US. Well, past tense because he's left now, but the system still hasn't changed.
Yeah.
And
the new guys know better.
Exactly.
So worse in many regards.
So using the allegiance and the ally of the United States and pushing forward despite what the international community is saying. So this pushing forward of settlements, this Sheikh Jarrah, and the likes, there's many areas like this. Now it's Save Silwan, and there's loads of areas. But the thing is, look, you've got aggression of Israel into different areas that the international community doesn't acknowledge Israel's power or the legitimacy in those areas, and Israel continues to go forward. The thing that I've seen, and I don't know how applicable it's going to be, on a realistic level. On a kind of pen to paper level, okay, fair enough, But on a realistic level, I don't know if it's going to happen, and that's economic sanctions. Economic sanctions has worked with other nations. I mean, it's crippling nations like Iran, North Korea, and the likes. So it can work. But the thing is, because of, I mean, were you aware that for the last 7 months during this whole crisis, there's been joint naval exercises of the UK, Israel, and the US? Were you aware of that?
No, but it doesn't surprise me. They're deeply allied from a long time. What I would say is something I was doing recently. I was involved with a project trying to help.
But, you know, just hold on to that thought, yeah?
Absolutely.
But, you know, when you said, no, I'm not aware of that, you wouldn't be the only one, because it wasn't in the news in the last 7 months. In fact, if you Google it now, it's going to come up, but it's only going to come up in the Jewish newspapers, and the Israeli
what
newspapers.
Exactly was it? So the naval exercises and where?
Yeah, so they were doing joint naval exercises, whilst on the outside this was happening, that look, Israel is doing this, and yes, we should condemn this, we should condemn that. But behind the scenes, you've got this whole kind of unit taking place, supporting each other. But Israel's actions were terroristic. They're terroristic actions. Yeah, the extreme, the illegal actions. But then behind the doors, there's naval exercises taking place. And in Israel, if you look at the newspapers, they were promoting this, but in the UK, it wasn't mentioned by anyone. Yeah, but the question would be why? It's because people know that to be affiliated with Israel on a public level, it's not something to be proud of. Yeah, but the point that I was getting to was the economic sanctions, that it's not practical because of UK's relationship, post-Balfour Declaration and the likes, and America's, of course, well, they've been unapologetic with their links, especially during the Trump era as well. So I would say economic sanctions, but in order to get them to work, you'd need nations like the UK and the US backing it. But because of the kind of relationship Israel and America shares, it seems very unlikely for it to be taking place. And that's why people are becoming more and more frustrated. Yeah. Now, when people are becoming more, you have to realize, you've seen these movies, isn't it? Where a person comes, they kill the child of the person, and then the dad goes on a rampage. Yeah, he tries to go to the police to get justice. He doesn't get justice. What happens? You've seen these movies.
Some Liam Neeson.
Yeah, Vigilante. You know that Gerard Butler.
It's not my favourite kind of film. But
Yeah,
cool.
law-abiding citizen. They start going on a rampage. Yeah, Punisher and all of these.
Revenge.
It's
It's palpable, and when it's to your family, it's undescribable. It's deeply human.
That's exactly what it is. It's undescribable. And when these bombs are falling, Hugh, on a daily basis, you have to understand not everybody is going to be coming from a rational point of view. You will get people, Hugh, that are pissed off, and they have no way of expressing it. In fact, when you've got America saying no, not condemning it, the UK not condemning it, and then working hand in hand, you've got people that are now feeling alienated. Then you've got the Arab countries that are worried more about the economic part. Then you are going to get people that are going to be more inclined to these fringe, extreme groups.
Absolutely.
And then you know what the problem, Hugh, there is? People are then going to be looking at that. Why? Because it's selective outrage.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, I mean, I completely understand what you mean. It's inherently they're being radicalized by their own oppressor. Like, I completely understand that premise. And then, you know, you have a whole battlefield going on, and it can be normal.
It's like I keep slapping you, yeah? But the camera's off. I tell him switch the camera off. Pat, 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 pat. You're patient. Pat, 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 pat. Eventually, you roll your sleeves up. I'm like, switch the camera on, and then you give me a right hook.
Yeah, and
I'm like, yo.
And those who are in charge of the narrative have the power in these situations.
Precisely.
I completely understand what you're saying. To speak to the economic sanctions thing, in terms of practical things we can do now, campaign against the arms trade, have a petition you can sign. It's not a petition, it's a letter writing thing where you can contact your local MP and encourage them to stop the
I
trade
think
of
people
arms.
have been doing that, especially with Elbit. You heard Elbit, isn't it?
No.
ELBIT. There've been a lot of because they're the major kind of arms contractors of
Right,
Israel.
right, like BAE or something, like those big
Yeah, but
weapons.
Elbit is more kind of, I think 70% of Israel's arms journey through Elbit.
Because that's the thing, if there's no arms, there's no war, you know what I mean? And on any side and at any point. But I'm not sure if I have an understanding. So you're basically saying from your perspective you want to see sanctions. I completely agree with you. I want to see Israel be sanctioned, held to account for all of these unlawful
sanction
actions.
them, cut relations with them. Yeah. Through, of course, sanctions, because there's different sorts of sanctions that you have. Yeah, before people had sanctions that, you know, we're not going to be sending our aeroplanes, we're not going to be sharing the tourism industry, we're not going to be doing this. Cut them off until they realize, you know what we're doing, it's not feasible for us.
But you would concede to an extent that the people, they have a right to exist. That the people that are born there, human beings that are born in a location, have a right to exist in that location.
Well, it's not up to me to say, but
if it were, would you agree that?
The thing is, I think the situation has reached such a stage at the moment. Israel is there. You can't
that's
deny
what
that.
I mean.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I would.
But I don't want to confuse right with legitimacy, though. The fact that it's there doesn't mean that I have to. You know what I'm saying? That's where the two get confused.
I understand what you mean. Yeah.
Some will say, so you're unhappy with the
like
way
a
it was.
God-given right. Yeah, that's not what I'm saying. No. But,
legitimacy.
But it
no.
may as well. It may as well.
It's there.
That's what I mean.
I don't have to like it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's there. We have to make the best of the situation.
But
that's me sitting here in London, not understanding.
But I really think I don't hear that much. You know.
To be honest with you, I don't think anyone denies that. What happens to you is, there's a saying, it says, give him an inch, he'll go a mile. Yeah, and when people start doing that, that's what Israel has done with the likes of Yasser Arafat and the leaders. When leaders come meet them in the middle for the two-state solution, Israel takes a two-state solution, then starts building settlements, starts going forward. People are like, why are you meeting them in the middle? Because when you meet them in the middle, they go three quarters. Because that's what they do. You give them a hand, they take your arm, sort of thing. And we've seen that. These are case studies that have happened. Yeah.
But I think for me, what and very selfishly, but what Jews of a progressive disposition want to feel comfortable hearing is that, you know, there's
if we're born in Israel, can we exist in Israel?
Yeah, and I'm not born in Israel, but I know some people that are. I know some people. But yeah, I feel like
understand what you're trying to say.
You need a kind of base level of, because otherwise you're on some BMP, you know what I mean, repatriation stuff, and then you lose me at that point.
The thing is, Hugh, think because.
And I appreciate we're not the priority. And I think that's really important. And I'm sorry that, but to an extent, you can only speak from experience to know that there'd be a far more useful allyship between various groups and
bear in mind,
understanding that.
We've discussed three main things. One is Israel right from the get-go didn't follow the correct channels, and they can't legitimately call themselves a nation like other nations. That was number one. Number two is the two-state solution that we've obviously. Her name is Trip or something. Her name's coming in my head. The ambassador to the UK. She said the two-state solution is dead.
Yeah, I think it's the view of a lot of.
And then the third view, which is it's interesting to discuss it, because everybody has their view on where they're coming from, and that view is, look, you're saying, okay, because Israel's there, therefore, you know, let them exist over there. But who's got the right to say that, though?
I just mean more in a like from us. And I didn't come over here to defend Israel.
I know.
I came over here to seek, just kind of seek a broader understanding and a look. I feel like you can't push for a solution until you know the environment you're in. You can't just turn up in a block of flats where there's trouble day one and, like, you know what I mean. You need to establish, right, what's going on in this flat and this flat, and there's all kinds of people with all kinds of different views on it, and I really, I'm not.
But we're
I'm-
just exploring the views.
Yeah.
And the third view that you said you're not that kind of vibing with, it's this exact view, and the view promulgates that. Hang on a minute. Who gave Israel? You're saying okay, Israel is there. Let it remain there. People have the right. But I'm sorry, why are they there in the first place? Who's given them the right? Oh, the UK with the Balfour Declaration. I'm sorry, they don't have the right to do that. Why? If you've given them Palestine, I mean, hypothetically, you can do the same with Italy. You can do the same with Spain.
But they all believe.
What? So if there is another group that goes there, will you now say that because they've gone there, because somebody else has interfered, now suddenly you have to be okay with it? Do you see, Hugh?
I understand what you're saying. Because they're using the argument of their
Yeah, but we're here. Yeah.
historic connection to the land, and they can't use that. But also, I think, just in terms of
Oh yeah.
an
So sorry.
argument-
This is also a good point as well. That Israel is not a theocracy, is it?
No, it's a secular state.
Exactly. So, but anytime one of the higher ups speaks about it, the main premise is the Old Testament. In fact, the new leader, that's in Al Jazeera with his interview with Mehdi Hasan, that's what he said. That's like, hey. So, yeah, that's what it is.
Mashallah, nice to see you. Alhamdulillah. Yeah, mashallah, you got him out of
He's
his
going to be
cage.
his couch, but he didn't fit in the train.
Alhamdulillah.
Hey man, nice to meet you.
See you guys.
So, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't realize. Were you recording?
What was the last thing that I was saying?
You were saying that they
Theocracy.
use,
Yeah.
they use theocracy. Yeah, well, that's a common tactic. So if you're speaking to a secular crowd, you get theological, and if you're speaking to a religious crowd, you get secular, because then you're kind of diverting their expectations of what the discourse
Exactly.
will become.
So Hugh, the whole point of me bringing up the three arguments was so you can see that there's room and there's sense in all three of them.
Yeah, I agree.
And of course, us being in London, we are more inclined to the sanctions, to the sanction side, because of course we're not really in there. We're not really experiencing. We haven't lived there. We don't really know the struggles of those people, and both of us are a bit ignorant to the historical context behind it as well.
Absolutely.
But if we were to take that and apply that situation very, very simply, that if a group of people came to Spain, and they settled there and they started taking over, do you now have to be okay with giving them
Like
parts?
the Inquisition.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I didn't like that.
So some people from the get-go, they're like, forget all of this. Let's see where it started from. Like, it started from Balfour. Like the UK said, okay, this belongs to you. But why did they have the right to say that? And do they have the right to say that? So you have to understand, Hugh, that it's people coming and dealing with this at different levels. So you have people that are dealing with it from the root. That, hang on a minute, why are we even entertaining this idea that it's not Palestine? It's Palestine, and somebody's coming through illegal means, Then,
so this guy over there, he's saying like, what is Palestine? It's called Philistine. It's a Roman name, and this is a name given by the Romans. This is, and I think what that argument makes, and that's often a Zionist argument, that like you go back and you go back and you go back and you go back. But I think what it doesn't acknowledge is, because what you could say to him is like, is there a country called Turkey, or like in history, or like, it would have been Ottoman Empire, Anatolia, or whatever. You can. Things change, and there will always be those that are wedded to the origins and stuck in the mud. But oftentimes you find, whilst they're stuck in the mud, barking at each other, there's a new problem. A new problem has arisen, and so it's a case of prioritizing your intentions, and that can sound very.
the thing with that, Hugh, is you're right. If we keep journeying back in time, then sometimes it may seem as something which is very abstract, very difficult to deal with. Let's stick with the modern era. If we stick in the modern era and this starts becoming legitimized, that anyone can go, any group of people can go to another country and settle there, and then everybody will have to recognize it. It's a dangerous precedent to be setting.
Absolutely.
And because it's a very modern issue.
But when you pay tax to this country, that's exactly what you're doing.
exactly what you're doing.
Well, you're propping up a crown. You're propping up the fruits of colonization. You know what I mean? And so it's inherently entrenched in modernity. It's everywhere. You know, the
It
wealth
might be a
of this-
dilute version.
The
I
wealth
agree
of
with
this
you.
nation is
Yeah.
and I agree, and that's just going back. That's
Yeah.
going back. But to say that, you know what I mean? I completely am opposed to. I agree. I'm opposed to how the state came to be. I'm opposed to the actions of the state now. The only thing.
And you know what? I have to commend you on that. I have to commend you on that because it is a very brave stance to take. Whilst people, I don't know if you've been following the Sheikh Jarrah issue.
Yeah, of course. Save
ce-
Sheikh Jarrah.
Exactly, and celebrities that have
Masjid
been.
Al-Aqsa,
Yeah, and celebrities have been speaking out, and anytime they speak out, now even saying that, you know what Israel is doing is wrong, you know, it's unacceptable. Now even speaking against Israel is now being categorized in the same kind of classification as anti-Semitism. You've got people like Ben Shapiro, you know Ben Shapiro, isn't it? Who's very in favor of this as well, and that. Yeah, so because Ben Shapiro has been popularizing this as well, this is becoming very dangerous that you can't even criticize Israel. You can't even...
I kind of agree with you, but then I kind of feel like you sort of sound like the Daily Mail a bit, like you can't say anything anymore, like without it, you know what I mean? Can you hear how there's echoes of that in what you're saying? There's a kind of a tabloidism that I think is equally as dangerous for that sentiment to become
I'll tell you how
elevated and popular, because you can't say it, but you
I'll
can.
tell you how it's
just
different.
need to be eloquent and careful.
I'll
I
tell
think you
you-
can say anything.
Yeah.
If you're eloquent and careful and respectful.
I would disagree with that. I don't think you can say everything. There's a definition of anti-Semitism, yeah, that goes into Judaism, the faith, yeah. But Zionism, to be conflated, to incorporate Judaism, I think that's anti-Semitism.
Yeah, to
what I'm saying?
conflate Jews with Israel, and say
the
they're one of
government,
interchangeable. I completely agree. It's anti-Semitic. That's why that's the same as to
That's
conflate
where,
Islam with with Iran
Saudi
or
Arabia,
Saudi
yeah.
Arabia, any kind of Muslim nation. You know, there's
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not that you can't, we're not allowed to say anything. No, you say stuff within reason. Yeah, you should be allowed to criticize Israel, just like you should be allowed to criticize Saudi Arabia, Iran, North Korea, the UK, US. Yeah, but the thing is, I don't think it's very Daily Mail-y because conflating, this is what we've already concluded on, conflating a religion and linking it to a country, like both of them, like in one big means you're insulting the other. I think that's fallacious.
But then I think also you need to be careful when you're criticizing an ideology, Zionism and ideology, and then criticizing a government and criticizing a population. So fundamentally, those people that are born today, I would view them as innocent. They're born today in a nation. You know, they haven't voted yet. They haven't had a chance to say what their perspective is. I think there's often a case of conflating the ideology of Zionism and also the government of Israel and the population of that state. So if you say fuck Israel, you're saying, you know, if I've grown up, that's going to turn me off from peace immediately, you know what I mean? And it's just a case of being careful. And I would again like to reiterate, this is not the priority of what we should be doing with our time. And I know I'm paradoxically taking up your time to discuss and make that point. Like I truly believe that justice and liberation for the Palestinian people is absolutely what we should be putting our time for. But I believe that a better understanding of the discourse and how we say things will make that cause much easier in the future, because there'll be less instances for reactionaries and right-wing populists like Ben Shapiro to be able to trip you up. Because, you know, and I'm not saying you've said anything that is trip-up worthy. I think Ben Shapiro has abhorrent views on most things. So, I said all things.
I think that's why our conversation was very good, because I think it unpacked a lot of issues you managed to get across, and I think that is very important, that you cannot label every Israeli, every Jewish person, and homogenize them with one label. Well, it's very dangerous. It's something as Muslims that we're struggling with. It's something I think Jewish people, they're struggling with. And I would say as Israelis, like yourself, if you were to go...
I'm not Israeli in any way. I'm not Israeli.
What did you say? You're secular...
I'm just Jewish.
Secular Jewish, you
Yeah,
said?
so, you know.
Cultural Jewish.
I'm from Portsmouth, man. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I'm not, I'm just, yeah.
Cultural Jew.
Yeah. Cultural Jew, sure.
Yeah. So the reason why you'd be linked with Israel is because Benjamin Netanyahu, in his last couple of months,
He wants me to come over.
yeah,
He wants me
and
to
he's
set
been
up a
saying
life.
this is the official Jewish state. So because of that, I'm sure you'd understand why people would put yourself in that category. But it's good to see that you'd say, you know what, I wouldn't want to link myself to the actions of the Israelis.
Yeah. And here's me now saying that.
Yes.
But also I just think going forward,
Yeah.
you can appreciate that actually quite a lot of people probably feel like that. Or they might feel indifferent about the whole matter. I think you'll find in most instances of conflict, the majority of people are, they don't care. But like it's kind of, and I wish they did care, and I wish they were more active and were more vocal. But also, because something happens in a country far away from you, there shouldn't, in the same vein, I don't believe any Muslim should have to condemn terrorism. The religion of peace should not have to do that. Like, I completely understand that. So for that exact same reason, the assumption that any Jew has anything to do with Israel or Zionism, this premise. So I'm not saying you think that, but you're merely explaining why some people would do that because some prominent Zionists have said that
exactly.
thing. Yeah, I follow what you're thinking, but yeah, I'm just trying to say that so it can be said.
No, of course, and it's good. Sometimes it does need to be said.
Yeah. Sometimes things just need to be said because.
But in terms of your faith, let's.
I'd like to say the Shahada, please.
Really? Let's do it.
No, sorry, I'm not trying to take. I'm not trying to mock it.
The thing
But
is,
I know that's what you guys do, innit?
to be honest, you acknowledge that this life is only one. Yeah, we're all going to have to pass away. This world came into being, and there will come a time that this world will end. So logically speaking, rationally speaking, it is something that we do need to spend time getting to the bottom of. And like we did with the Israel-Palestine issue, I think when it comes to religious dialogue, it's very important as well here. And especially knowing that our death can come any minute. And knowing that all of this cannot have just sprung from nothing.
You know what I mean? Now you're saying.
What is your view? Let's unpack that. What's your view about how it all started?
Sure. So I'm a firm believer in unbelief. I'm a militant unbeliever. I don't know that this is happening right now really that much. I'm not that lucid. I think we're eternally on the periphery of understanding. You see when people's minds just go, man. People deteriorate. I fully agree that death is coming. Death is all we're born to receive. That is what I believe, and I think that's okay. I think that we're very grateful to be able to talk and communicate. But I think realistically, it's chaos.
We've jumped to the end of the story, to the death bit. Let's jump to the start. How do you believe that it all started?
It doesn't concern me. I think it's a waste of everyone's time.
Really?
Yeah.
Beginning, how everything began.
Yeah, it's a waste. Things are. See, you believe in a level of moral objectivity of having some kind of unifying idea that kind of bolsters you and keeps you safe and eventually will take you to Jannah, right? Paradise. But I think it's a lovely thing to do, and I really admire and respect it because it takes a lot of discipline and a lot of hard work. But I think to an extent it doesn't really matter how we into be. We're barely here right now. You know what I mean?
What do you mean by that?
Well, you know what I mean. It's life
Feels pretty straightforward that we're here, we're experiencing the world with our
But you
five
were
senses.
asleep, right? You were asleep, and you were in some dream state, and you can. I think it's often very hard to differentiate between those two things. You know, when you wake up, no, I don't mean all the time.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not mad, but I think
You have to unpack this to
reality is fleeting, I think, for many people, and I think oftentimes in various religious books.
The thing, Hugh, is I think if a person is a true seeker, don't underestimate or don't trivialize any part of the journey. If we look, even in terms of us as human beings, there's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end. In a story, there's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end. In the life cycle of what's around us, in plants start off as seeds, they then grow into shrubs.
We think that now, but in 10 years, someone comes, they say, oh yeah, actually we're aliens, and we were just doing...
What's up, outside? So good to see you outside.
Yeah.
Good to see you outside. You coming every
I
week?
think Ali's going to be happy to hear that. I'm going to try, inshallah. Inshallah.
But yeah, sorry, plants and seeds.
Right. How are you?
MashaAllah, barakallah feek. Speaking English little, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Barakallah feek. Muslim, alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah. Assalamu alaikum. How are you? Alhamdulillah, how are you?
Thank you very much.
Good. You guys just, alhamdulillah, I'm good.
Came to Gaffer Road. Do you know what?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
This Hyde.
Yeah.
Every night we should show you YouTube videos.
No way.
And now we still watch your videos. Look, he's got
Oh, he's raised well, mashallah. You raised him on a good diet of smile to Jannah.
every night before you sleep. You show YouTube videos.
What?
And sometimes
I don't know,
that.
man. I've got some more to say to it,
Actually,
mate.
waiting for you.
It's up to you.
Oh, that's amazing.
So you don't know what you're doing, mashallah. Because before you used to watch pranks.
Yeah.
And it was okay, but it was nothing wrong. And suddenly you wanted something jokes.
Yeah.
But jokes with Islam, perfect to sleep. So jazakallah khair.
No, I appreciate that. God bless you. God bless you.
Are you coming here every Sunday now?
I'm going to try. I've got holidays now from work, so I'm going to try.
You're teaching.
I'm a teacher in Kurdi.
We know about you.
So, alhamdulillah, I mean, on the weekend I'm going to try come, because we do filming on Saturday as well, so just keep myself busy, isn't it?
Sorry. Are you finished?
No, I think we're still going.
I'm gonna cut for now.
Okay. No, I'll just finish the conversation with him.
Can I take a picture?
You can do it.
Do you want me to take one?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Is it still running, yeah? Alright, so,
Plants.
yeah, plants.
Yeah. So they got.
You're talking about the philosophy of science.
They pollinate, yeah, and we firmly believe that now. And I believe probably at the moment that's a reasonable thing to think. Just like I think Islam's a reasonable thing to think. It's perfectly reasonable. It's a philosophy that governs the world. Why not take that on board? But in you know what I mean? In an hour, we could learn some brand new piece of information that completely.
Okay, let's unpack that then. So you're saying maybe an alien. The thing is,
I'm not a firm alien guy.
That's
but it could be an
absolutely
alien. It could be a
no
kind
problem.
of, you
No
know,
problem.
octopus.
Let's throw stuff out there.
kind of-
Octopus or alien, no problem.
What do you prefer?
There's going to be certain fundamental truths that aren't going to change. Yeah, regardless of what is discovered or what's not discovered, everything has a beginning. Yeah, cause and effect that exists.
I don't know if that's our understanding of. That's a linear way of thinking about things, but that might only be because we can only utilize a certain percentage of our brain. You know, everything's 3 dimensions, right? There's 20 more. You know what I mean? So and in that context, saying everything has a line and an end, so a start and an end. That might be like, I don't know, like you know, like trying to explain a phone to someone. Like from the Stone Age, how can you explain that to them? Like the fact that there has been so much that we have not known, and now know, seems stupid. No, sorry. I'm sorry.
Be yourself,
no.
You don't need to keep apologizing.
I just mean stupid. from a personal perspective, not from a,
Yeah.
you know, it doesn't seem stupid to do these things, but in terms of making determinations of a start and an end and things like that, it seems stupid to be
I'm well aware of
that.
that view. That's why I can appreciate where you're coming from. But sometimes it can seem frustrating, especially when you think that it's just never ending. There's many things that we don't know and we can't rationalize everything, and it's just too much to put into one human brain. I absolutely appreciate that, and I know it's and I can appreciate that, but I still would put this forward that there is a fundamental truth, and cause and effect. For you to say that cause and effect would change, you would in essence have to say that things can pop out of nothing. So matter from where there is no matter. And when you start believing that things can just
But you've just said, for me to say there's no start and an end, I'm saying something can pop out of nothing, but you're just using start and an end again, you know what I mean? You're using the same rhetoric that I'm saying doesn't exist.
You're saying start and end doesn't, okay.
I'm just saying, that's why I said I'm a militant agnostic. I really don't believe in belief, but I also think any of it could be, I think lots of the ideas are nice, but I don't think there's any point in putting your eggs in any of these baskets to...
Let's just say I came to you then. I said, you know what, I'm interested in your kind of philosophy of life. Convince me. How would you start?
I don't know, man, because what you're doing there, because you're the one that asked me to...
Okay, yeah.
If it's possible. Sorry, just to clarify, I'm just trying to say if you can wrap it up if it's possible.
Yeah,
but if you're
yeah,
in a good
it is,
conversation, no, if you guys are in a good point, carry on.
Yeah, about a minute or two.
Yeah? Okay, no
Yeah,
problem.
well,
But if it's a good point, carry on.
this was not my main purpose.
Can you bring him every week?
Can you say it on camera, please? Yes.
Can you bring him Dishan every week?
Okay.
You would like to see his beer and his future.
Inshallah. Make dua, brother.
But the thing you've done there is...
You know what? Ali, take it. Let me just speak to him off camera. I'll speak to him.
No,
Finish
yeah,
off.
no,
because
I'm fine with that.
this conversation's, I mean, it's a bit
No.
wishy-washy, hairy-fairy, isn't it?
Oh, wait, what's going on? Where's the conversation at?
I don't know, like, with him...
Hello.
Yeah. With him, he doesn't agree with any kind of set mechanism. He believes that things can change, and for us to pin ourselves to one mechanism, it's illogical.
So why don't you carry on? Is there a specific reason?
No, I mean, it's not.
Yeah? Okay, if you believe that.
I'm genuinely interested to see where it's coming from.
Okay, so you want to take it off camera?
No, you do your thing, bro.
No. Not because of that. But carry on. I'm here till 7. I told him he's chilling. I just said to you for the
Bro,
recording.
if I wanted it recording, I would have told you.
Okay, no, just wrap it up. Wrap it up. Yes.
Because I'm going to blow his mind when
Oh, he's scared. He's going to get exposed on camera. All right. You're a little boy.
Is that what you think, yeah? Is that what you think, yeah?
So what do you think? Watch this.
No.
Okay, so...
But yeah, what you've done there is you flipped it on me to imply that I would be evangelical about my
No,
perspective.
what I've said is if
You
what
wanna
you're
learn
saying...
about-
Yeah. I wanna see where you're coming from, so I could see if that would be a viable path for me to take.
But yeah, there's many presuppositions within what you're saying there, because the idea that it's a path, as if it has some kind of point. The idea.
So there's no point or path, yeah?
No point or path, man. But it's lovely. It's pleasant. From my subjective reading of reality, it's lovely. It's pleasant.
Is it though, you?
Yeah, I'm having a wonderful time talking to you. I feel like things like empathy and respect. These are
What if things
these are
were to go
notions
wrong?
that come from consensus.
What if things were to go wrong in your life? How
Things
would you
have
deal?
gone wrong in my life.
How do you deal with it? How do you rationalize it?
Yeah, I think that's the most normal thing that could be. I believe we come from chaos, and so when chaos rears its head, that makes complete sense. That's the most rational thing.
Don't you think that's... So you're saying when things go wrong, that's just a consequence of chaos, but isn't chaos itself a mechanism as well?
Nah, not really. Chaos is a mechanism. No, it's not really.
Chaos theory?
That's it saying, yeah, maybe chaos theory in a scientific context, but I'm the broad
You're
conceptual
talking about the
notion.
dictionary definition of
Well,
chaos.
yeah, I don't know it, but yeah, the the feeling of chaos, and it's not like a mania, like it's just a presentness, you know, and an immediacy that there is merely this moment now, and I appreciate that. Yeah, you don't think that.
What about when you hear of people like the Prophet Muhammad as historical figures and what they've achieved and what they've done?
What I'm going to say now, I really don't want you to find disrespectful or offended, but I think for me, where we've existed previously in more cut-off, isolated communities, away from the kinds of technology, resources, and medicine we have now. And I know this isn't what you're going to say around a bunch of believers.
No, this is quite interesting.
But I believe
you're saying that
we
because
did not. No. I believe we did not have a diagnosis for many of these mental illnesses. And enough times these days, when you see people that say that God is speaking to them, it's quite clearly, it's a mental illness. But that doesn't, having a mental illness does not inhibit you from being able to be incredibly productive. Some of the greatest.
But doesn't this contradict your worldview as well, if you can class that? Because you're saying there's many things that we don't understand and we can't classify. You've been quick to classify something as a mental illness, and you're very definitive to say if you can hear God, then that has to be a mental illness, when you yourself have just admitted that there's many things that we don't understand. Science we can't pin down and say, okay, that theory is right, we may learn other things. Wouldn't you say that this could also be one of those things that many people don't understand yet, whilst many people do?
That could be the case. That could be. But that's what I'm saying. That's the purpose of. Like I'm saying, this is a theory that I don't necessarily completely subscribe to, because the thing with religion is that you have to completely subscribe to it.
So then, going back to the Prophet Muhammad, then hearing how he was as a historical figure, what do you say about that? Like you initially said, it was because certain groups of people were locked off from humanity, yeah?
I think various prophets over the years, a potential hypothesis from my perspective is that a lot of these people were saying they could talk to God. You know, they say about Moses and the burning bush being like DMT or some psychoactive substance. There's all kinds of things that we have means of contextualizing in a modern context, which I also completely agree this modern context could be nonsense tomorrow. However, I am within it. I am present within it right now, and so I think there's many.
Because in your worldview, you can't accept it nor deny it, isn't it?
Exactly.
So that's what you think about, say, the Prophet Muhammad. Yeah. What about a book like the Quran, with the linguistic miracles that it has, with regards to prophecies that it's made? How do you rationalize that?
How do you rationalize Harry Potter?
By looking into it and critiquing it, and if it lives up to a certain critique, then you say, okay, it's tick these 3-4 boxes.
But at the end of the day, if you're a book reviewer, I'm a book reviewer, we both read Harry Potter, I think it's amazing, you hate it, cool, you know what I mean? That's my perspective. So you take an innate
as a book
meaning
reviewer
from the Quran, but to me it's a series of words, you know, and that's cool. And I can't speak upon it as I haven't read it. I'll
tell you why that's very important, Hugh. Harry Potter is read for entertainment. Yeah, it's read just maybe to increase your vocab, to get some ideas about imagination, etc. The Quran, on the other hand, is a manual on how to live life, on how to have morals, on how to deal with people.
You know what those things do? They entertain your soul. So it's the same.
I wouldn't say they entertain your soul. I would say they feed your soul.
Okay. And Harry Potter feeds my soul. So what?
When you say feed.
Also, I don't care for the Harry Potter books particularly.
Yeah.
It was merely
well, you
popular,
seem to be defending it. It feeds your soul, apparently.
Crazy. Yeah, man. It feeds. No, but
yeah.
I say.
The thing is, what we're doing is we're just playing with words. But the thing, bro, is one is existence, life. What am I doing here? It's much more deeper and cannot be linked in the slightest with entertainment. Entertainment is a fleeting feeling, whilst purpose is something which is deep-rooted.
So I completely disagree with that to an extent, because sometimes in music is entertainment, right? But for the closest thing I've had to any kind of spiritual feeling, some kind of just feeling of inner peace, which I know has been via entertainment. So to cast it off as this thing that you know, I don't buy that at all.
What is inner peace according to you?
No, it's just a more positive feeling within that particular moment.
I don't understand.
Okay, so at the moment you feel okay, but
No, I
someone,
feel happy because I'm speaking to you.
well, okay, at the moment you feel happy. Okay.
I wouldn't say I have inner peace speaking to you. Do you see the difference?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, one's happy, one's inner peace. Inner peace could be, I could be in an argument with somebody, but I'm content.
I'm using religious terms, which probably, you know, like spiritual terms, which probably unhelpful if I'm trying to say I am not spiritual or religious. So
Yeah, you're sending mixed messages.
yeah. But you know what I mean? I've still observed. It's what my observation of what I feel. That I can understand the reason you prostrate 5 times a day. I can understand. I've been to
That's
mosques.
fine. But what's inner peace according to you?
Well, I think you think that's what you feel then. I think that's what you think you feel then. And I think that's what I thought I felt then.
Okay, what is it that you feel at that situation?
You're going to say it's God, right? You're going to say it's the creator, it's the power of the undefinable.
Let's see. I might say that, I might not.
I think it's being at one with that chaos.
So you feel inner peace when you're at one with chaos.
Absolutely.
And which sort of music do you listen to?
Dub music.
So you're saying when you listen to dub music,
So
you feel...
dub music, as in like dub reggae music, which has, you know, it's a very, very religious music. It's Rastafarian music, you know. It is. Right?
You're a big contradiction, you know.
Yeah, but you can. I'm very interested in religion and culture and everyone, and I'm a firm believer that everyone should be able to, you know, get on with their
100%.
stuff. But
100%.
But to actually, you know, take something on as a fundamental liberty, a way I would live my life, to me is I couldn't do it.
That's fine, and that's absolutely okay at this moment in time. But you've also acknowledged that just like science can change, human beings can change, our understandings can change, our consciousness can change. So, I mean, that's fine. You may be thinking like that at the moment, but we're just unpacking. So you're saying you feel inner peace when you listen to reggae music, which is...
Man, I sound like such a
reggae/dub. I'm being honest. Wallahi, I've never heard in my life
just like a really,
reggae/dub.
It's more so a really loud bass vibration. It moves. It resonates. So they have it in Buddhism with the singing bowls or a gong.
It's actually interesting.
Or
there's a lyric.
The call to prayer.
There's a lyric.
Lots of beautiful vibrations, and that's why they amplify it so much on the Hyde.
Okay, so you're saying vibrations is something which really resonates with you, yeah?
Some good ones.
Okay, and that gives you inner peace.
It gives me what... Yeah, it gives me a feeling I enjoy, a pleasant feeling.
Okay, then what's your definition of joy and happiness?
It's irrelevant, you know what I mean? I don't necessarily know if joy, it's a release of serotonin, some say it's the voice of God.
What do you say?
I don't say. That's my whole point. I don't say.
You've used the word happiness and joy a couple of times as well.
And of course, you know what I mean?
And if you're using it, you should know what it means.
I appreciate it. Seems like I want to have my cake and eat it. I'm saying I don't believe in anything. Also, now I'm going to I'm going to pick little parts of it. Yeah,
and listen to reggae/dub.
yeah, man. I recommend it. Do you listen to music?
I don't know.
So you just spoken voice?
Yeah, mostly voice only.
A cappella stuff as well.
A cappella stuff, nature, people. I like listening to people.
Well, you know, there's music in all of that. But is there any particular reason?
Particular reason about?
Yeah, why you don't listen to music?
Oh, yeah, because music, well, firstly, it's a religious belief that we've been told not to listen to music just because of the control and influence that it can have over you at a detrimental level.
Does that not contradict what you say about having free will, though? Surely you can control yourself, right?
I can listen to it.
All right, you just choose not to.
Yeah, I choose not to because, I mean, just like I can eat something forbidden, It's not
Right.
like I'm going to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I have free will to eat that, but I just choose not to. And that's where, of course, if you were a Muslim, you'd choose to do certain things. Just like you get certain Muslims that choose to do some things that are pro their faith and some things that are anti their faith.
But coming back, I can feel where you're going with this. You're going to a level of.
I'm just trying to understand where you come from. So you said inner peace, but the reason why I ask you what happiness means to you is because I genuinely think that you're conflating the two and confusing the two. That's why I want to see if you understand the distinction. But when I asked you about happiness, you're saying it's not important. But I don't think that you should be putting yourself in a position where you're saying that's not important, that's not important. It's good to understand everything. Whether you want to follow it or whether you agree with it or disagree with it, that's another issue. But to say that, oh, no, happiness, definition of happiness is not important.
You know what I mean? You say to a kid, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Yeah, more time they're going to do it, right? They're going to do it.
Shut your mouth.
But do they understand what happiness is?
Yeah. Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Our memory's running out, Zishan. He's recording in 4K.
Why? Why is he recording this? Why record this? All you're gonna get is like my pimples and my lower back. What was the last thing that you said?
Yes.
Yeah, if you're happy and you know. So if you ask a child what's happiness, the child won't say it.
But they'll clap their hands. They're responding to that.
But if you ask a child what's happiness, no child's gonna say it's not important. I don't care what happiness is.
Yeah, of
Do you
course,
see?
of course.
That's
because they exist within systems of learned behaviour, and so they've learned a definition of what happiness is, and they will repeat that back.
So
to
have you as well.
Yes, absolutely.
That's why I want to know what that definition is.
Well, you know, of just, I don't know, antithetical to sadness, you know, and what
That's not a
sadness.
definition, though,
what
is it?
sadness, you know, but you don't define what day-to-day things are so much, you know. They exist in a.
Well, you can to you. For example, if somebody says, what's happiness to you? Happiness to me, I would say now, is standing here, having good health, being able to converse with you, having these wonderful faces, listening. That I would class as happiness. Unhappiness was if I'm like this, and he's got the camera out and it starts raining. It would make me sad. Yeah, so I'd be able to link my behaviors to certain categories. But when I start saying, oh, I'm feeling like this, like what? Oh, it's not important. But then you're expressing that.
In the parameters of learned behaviour and learned language, all things that I've previously stated from my perspective on things, I think could be irrelevant very soon.
Yeah.
Happiness is all those same things that they are to you as they are to me. Having a full belly, you know, paycheck, it's all alright, like everything's okay. I'm with my partner, you know, my family's alright.
Are you married, yeah?
No.
You got a partner?
Yeah.
No, I was just curious.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Not girlfriend.
Okay.
Whatever, you know, just we've been going out a while, so if you want to say something.
Yeah,
something
that's fine.
better.
But one thing I will say, because he did say wrap up, is you said you've never read the Quran, yeah, and you're open to consciousness evolving and changing, and your awareness of life changing. And yes, agreed. In the current system that we're in, being creatures of habit, being creatures of what's around us, and we learn from what's around us. We learn from the news, we learn from each other, and seen as we were discussing at the start of this conversation as well, there's a lot of media coverage on Muslims, there's a lot of media coverage on Arabs and stuff like that, and that does consciously or unconsciously, it does affect us. So you do seem like somebody that doesn't get affected by that too much because of the initial conversation that we have. Yeah, otherwise you would have fallen in that trap and you would have just been following along just like a twig in the ocean with a wave. So I would say, just like reading any other book, I would say take time out and also read the Quran as well. And just like you're very open in terms of your thinking, you'd be surprised.